A protest was held in front of the British High Commission today to condemn British Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs David Miliband's participation at the Global Tamil Forum conference held on the 25th of February in London. Protesters say the Global Tamil Forum is a proxy organisation of the Tamil Tigers.
මේ මාතෘභූමිය නැවත බෙදන්න දෙමළ ජාතිවාදී බෙදුම්වාදයට යලි පණ දෙන්න මේ රට දෙකඩ කරලා අස්ථාවර කරලා ඔවුන්ගේ අභිමතාර්ථ ඉටු කරගන්න ඔවුන් තවදුරටත් දකිනවා නම් හීනයක් ඒ හීනිය සැබෑ වෙන්න අපි ඉඩ තියන්නේ නැහැ කියන අදිෂ්ඨානයයි අද අපි මේ පළ කරන්නේ. ඒ නිසා ඊට ඕනෑකමින් බ්‍රිතාන්‍ය රජයට අපි බල කරලා ඉල්ලනවා විශේෂයෙන්ම අපි බ්‍රිතාන්‍ය ජනතාවගෙන් මහා බ්‍රිතාන්‍ය ජනතාවගෙන් ඉල්ලනවා ඔවුන්ගේ නායකයන් තවත් රටක බෙදුම්වාදයකට උඩගෙඩි දෙන්න තවත් රටක ජාතිවාදයකට පණ දෙන්න මේ දරන උත්සාහයට එරෙහිව නැගී හිටින්න කියලා අපි සාමකාමී ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදය අගයන මහා බ්‍රිතාන්‍යයේ සියලුම රටවැසි ජනතාවගෙන් ඉල්ලනවා. ඒ වගේම ගෝල්ඩන් බ්‍රවුන්ලට මිලිබෑන්ලට ඔවුන් බලාපොරොත්තු වුණා මිනිමරු ත්‍රස්තවාදය බේරගන්න ආරක්ෂා කරගන්න කොටි නායකයෝගේ පණ බේරගන්න ඒ සියල්ල විවර්ත වුණා ඒ කිසිවක් ඔවුන්ට කරගන්න බැරි වුණා. අද ඒ නිසා සූදානම් වෙනවා නැවත මුල ඉඳලා බෙදුම්වාදයට උඩගෙඩි දීලා පණ ගන්න.
Right, returning to that formation of a new organisation representing Tamils, which meets in London today. The Global Tamil Forum promises to represent the international Tamil community and continue its campaign for self-determination, but in a non-violent way. Its conference is to be opened by the British Foreign Secretary, David Miliband, later. The Tamils have been seeking statehood from Sri Lanka for over 30 years, but a violent resistance from the Tamil Tigers was eventually crushed by government troops last May. Well, joining me is Father S.J. Manuel.
After May 19th of last year, we are facing a new situation where we have to mobilize the diaspora Tamils. There are over 1 million diaspora Tamils in the whole world. And we wanted to mobilize them and to help the well-being of the people in Sri Lanka, of all communities, especially the Tamils who have been the victims for a long time. And we have spread out our activities into various fields, that is humanitarian, human rights and victims of war, and the political goal, everything together as one, a democratic, transparent organization for the globe, for the whole world. We are not at all interested in any underhand or suspicious ways. We are transparent, we are democratic. Our organizations are registered in all the countries and even in Britain. And we have invited a Buddhist monk and a Muslim theologian for this conference today. And I am a Catholic priest against violence. I am heading this organization. You can't make baseless suspicions about this organization.
Right Honourable David Miliband doesn't need introduction, but anyway I'll give it a try. He's a member of the Parliament for South Shield since 2001, and with his younger brother Ed Miliband, they are the first siblings to serve in the cabinet since Austin and Neville Chamberlain. Appointed as the Foreign Secretary of Great Britain when he was 41, he is the youngest Foreign Secretary in the past 30 years. Foreign Secretary Miliband was the first foreign minister of any country to call for a humanitarian ceasefire during the beginning of last year, following a call by the Prime Minister at the Parliament during the parliamentary debate in January 2009. Right Honourable David Miliband went to Sri Lanka in April along with the French Foreign Minister to see for himself the conditions inside the camps for internally displaced persons in the north of Sri Lanka where the Tamils were held. Since the end of the fighting last May, the UK has remained at the forefront of international efforts to encourage an equitable and lasting peace in Sri Lanka. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and very warmly welcome Right Honourable David Miliband, the Foreign Secretary of the United Kingdom.
I want to very warmly welcome all of you to the House of Commons who've come from around Britain, and welcome you to Britain, those of you who've come from around the world. I think that it is very significant indeed that the Global Tamil Forum should have brought people together from 14 countries. That in itself is a huge achievement. It is a reflection of the breadth of the Tamil diaspora around the world. And I hope it speaks to a newfound unity that will serve the rights and hopes of the Tamil people in Sri Lanka. It's also important to recognise the history that's associated with Britain's relationship with Sri Lanka. The father spoke about this, and I hope that not just historians but Tamils will come to look back on this meeting in this building as being a time and a moment of significance for the future of the Sri Lanka movement. I also want to say that the foundation of the Global Tamil Forum, the inauguration of its international work, is an important moment for politics, and above all politics in Sri Lanka, because there is no substitute for political voice in asserting political rights. Tamils know to their cost the price of violence against them and in their name. We know that the civil war is over, but the civil peace has yet to be built. And it is the dedication of this organisation to build a lasting, equitable and durable political civil peace that I think is the test of all of our efforts. I want to commend very, very strongly your decision to not just to support non-violence but to advocate non-violence. I think that history has shown time and again that lasting peace is not found through weapons and through warfare, but through politics, however hard it is to persevere with it. And the road ahead, no doubt, will be long and hard in some ways that I will describe in a moment. But I think the founding commitment, not just to a fully inclusive political process, but to support non-violence as the means to achieve it, is something that speaks to the deepest values of the Tamil people, and actually, as I will say later, to the deepest values of people everywhere. Perhaps I should say why I'm here. It's not just that London is the venue for this important meeting, it's that the importance of establishing a lasting peace in Sri Lanka matters. It matters because of the deep links that exist between Britain and Sri Lanka, the deep links that exist between British people and Sri Lankans of all kinds. And it's also that the future of Sri Lanka is important for the future of South Asia more generally. Any Foreign Secretary would want to be here to listen but also to talk. And we know that today landmines are still scattered across the former conflict zone. The lack of infrastructure, the lack of electricity, the lack of irrigation, poverty rates in Tamil areas at least double those in the other provinces. And after the spike in violence that preceded the end of the civil war, nearly 100,000 Tamils still remain in IDP camps, unable to return to their homes. And I will never forget the faces that I saw in the IDP camps in Sri Lanka 15 months ago. I will never forget the stories that I was told of innocent people separated from their families and of profound fear about the future. And whenever I think of that statistic of 100,000 people still in IDP camps, I think of individual men, women, and in some cases young teenagers talking to me about all they wanted was to be treated as a decent human being, able to go about their lives in a decent way. And that's what motivates me, and it's what motivates the Prime Minister, and it's what motivates the government, to try to make a difference through the humanitarian agencies who should be given far greater access and freedom of manoeuvre. We also continue to urge the government of Sri Lanka to return the remaining IDPs to their home areas, to grant full access to NGOs. And we do not forget either the 11,500 or so ex-combatants also still in camps. Now, despite the scale of this humanitarian crisis and the need for us to focus on it as a matter of urgency, we do not forget the longer term. Because anyone who cares about the future of Sri Lanka knows that it will not be built by aid alone. It must be built through a new political settlement. Since the end of the civil war, since the re-election of President Rajapaksa, as we look forward or await the parliamentary elections, we continue to make the case that the President should use his mandate for a real drive for national reconciliation, a real drive to respect the rights of every single Sri Lankan, a real drive to fulfill the commitments to constitutional and other reform that would make a difference. Now, to do this, there needs to be greater effort to respect the rights of all Sri Lankans. It is because of our concern about the implementation of core commitments in respect of human rights conventions that we, along with 26 other members of the European Union, supported the European Commission's recommendation to suspend Sri Lanka from the benefits of the GSP Plus trade program. And it will require you to speak up for a spirit that recognizes that if people cannot find a way to live together, they will drift apart.
Tamils are able to choose their own leadership with neither fear nor favor. In their original places of birth. I hope you mark my words. I don't like doing round words. We're not about to display our dexterity of speaking here. In their original places of birth. The international and local media must be allowed to monitor all such activities. I want to elaborate on that. All existing IDP camps must be dismantled and as soon as possible, and those confined in them return to their rightful homes. I said their rightful homes because I hear and read some horrifying stories about what is happening to their properties on their lands in the north and northeastern areas. The international community, especially those involved in humanitarian aid, must be allowed to engage in their work without hindrance. By the way, Congress Friend just forgot one thing. I'm also the chairperson of the Solidarity Group for Peace and Justice in Sri Lanka. With all the little experience I have about the sufferings in Sri Lanka and all the little contributions I've done from the time I joined the Solidarity work in South Africa, this forum grows from strength to strength, and rest assured, from our side, not only the African National Congress as a political organization and still as a liberation movement, but the very government it is driving will stand by the Tamils until we say Sri Lanka is normal.
And can I welcome the formation of the Global Tamil Forum,
I think is extremely positive development. I think your conference here today is extremely positive, and I'm keen, both personally and for my party, to work with you over the weeks, months and years to come as you embark on your struggle to bring the global Tamil diaspora and its influence, working with the international community to get peace and justice on the island of Sri Lanka. And I want to pay tribute to the Tamils who've said that the struggle, the violent struggle, is now a struggle of the past, and the struggle now will use non-violent means and will demand that the international community is on your side. And I and my party have been determined that what we believe were war crimes should be investigated. I think the British government have responded well on this, but we will keep them to the mark on this. So let's be clear, in case the Sri Lankan government isn't clear, it's not just the Liberal Democrats, it's not just the British government, but it's the United States State Department. Their report of the Office of War Crimes Issues was unequivocal on this issue. The United Nations Commission of Human Rights was unequivocal on this issue. So it's the international community, in a neutral, legal and reasonable way, saying that we have to have the crimes of the past dealt with. And there is another issue which I think is immediate, which I've raised continually with the British government, and that is the issue of land rights in the north and east of the island. When there is violence, when there is suffering, when there is disease, when there is malnutrition, when there is homelessness, perhaps it seems odd to talk about land rights. But there is a danger that if we don't talk about them now, actions will happen which will prevent peace coming more quickly, which will prevent resolution coming more quickly, which will prevent resolution and reconciliation happening as soon as possible. We cannot allow land grabs. We cannot allow land to be taken from the Tamil people just because the President Rajapaksa and others are going to turn a blind eye to that. I believe one of the urgent and immediate calls from this conference, from the international community, must be that an independent international commission is set up to look at all claims to land. Legal and proper way is used to establish the claims of different people. I have been pleased that the European Union has acted recently. And I want to pay tribute, although there's not the same party, I want to pay tribute to the Labour government and to all governments across the European Union for the strong position they've taken on human rights abuses and withdrawing the GSP plus trade concessions from Sri Lanka. This is an example of what the international community can do if we stand up against human rights abuses. The need for political reform in Sri Lanka is urgent. What I'm going to say to you now, that we will judge the Sri Lankan government by its political reforms, by its judicial reforms, and by the way it allows media freedom in its country. If it does not come up to the mark on these issues, it can expect further moves by the international community. But looking ahead to the future, I've talked about the past, I've talked about the current situation, what about the future? Because that is what your conference is about today. And we can look forward to a Sri Lanka, to a Tamil community globally, and to a Tamil community on the island of Sri Lanka that has all its rights upheld, whether it's rights on a human rights basis, on civil rights basis, or on the rights to self-determination.
afternoon and honoured to participate in this inaugural Global Tamil Forum conference, and to do so with so many of my colleagues in the House of Commons. And I'm very pleased that the Foreign Secretary, who I call the current Foreign Secretary, was here this morning as well, because this is, as you were saying, Mr. Chairman, an occasion in which all British political parties have wanted to support and take part in. And I want to warmly return the welcome, especially to those of you who have travelled long distances. I see the flags of many nations represented on the desks here in front of us. And I think in some cases you have come all the way from Sri Lanka. And we are pleased that you have chosen to hold today's significant event here in London. Your community has support in our Parliament from all parties across the political spectrum, as is evidenced by the large number of MPs who have addressed your conference during the course of the day. And we all congratulate you on the establishment of the Global Tamil Forum, which unites your diaspora from around the world. I want to extend my gratitude too to the organising committee and the British Tamil Forum team for their efforts in bringing about today's important event and their kind invitation to say a few words on behalf of the Conservative Party. Our leader, David Cameron, has asked me to convey his best wishes to you. We both share a great appreciation of the significant contribution of the Tamil diaspora to many aspects of our society here in Britain. That contribution, and indeed that success, is built upon enterprise, community, family, and taking responsibility for oneself. These are values that the Conservative Party also holds dear, and that we will seek to advance if we are elected to form the next government in a few weeks' time. So I believe there is a natural affinity between Tamils in Britain and the Conservative Party. For this reason, we strongly urge the government of Sri Lanka to resolve the difficult political issues that remain and take immediate steps to address the concerns of the Tamil people and those of other minority groups. Meaningful political reform and reconciliation should be an urgent priority, and this reform will only hold legitimacy if the democratic aspirations of all Sri Lankans, regardless of ethnicity, can be fulfilled. We believe and we also believe there should be a full independent inquiry into alleged war crimes committed by both. The President of Sri Lanka did commit to the UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon last year that the Sri Lankan government would investigate alleged violations, but so far little concrete action has been taken. We have urged the Sri Lankan government, and will continue to do so, to establish a thorough independent investigation with assistance from the international community into abuses committed by all parties in the conflict. Restoring accountability and justice are vital steps towards healing a divided nation and people. Elections alone do not signal the existence of a fully functioning democratic system. Respect for human rights is a crucial pillar upon which any democracy is built, and we do have long-standing concerns about the human rights situation in Sri Lanka. Of particular concern is freedom of expression, including that of the national press, and the freedom lawfully to dissent. So let me be clear to you today that the position of the Conservative Party is that we fully support the European Commission's actions over Sri Lanka's GSP Plus trade agreement. From its preliminary report in October last year to its most recent decision to suspend the agreement due to human rights concerns. And while we support the Commonwealth's decision to decline Sri Lanka's bid to host the Heads of Government meeting in 2011 due to human rights concerns, I'm certain this organisation can provide constructive support to everyone working to achieve sustainable peace in the country. Sri Lanka should now be able to emerge, if the right policies are pursued, from a very difficult period in its recent history. And we believe reconciliation and genuine political reform should begin in earnest. I would like to wish the Global Tamil Forum every success in its endeavour to bring about positive change in Sri Lanka. And I'm sure that the considerable resourcefulness and energy, huge resourcefulness and energy, of Tamils around the world will be crucial in this task. We all wish to see Sri Lanka live up to its potential of being a prosperous, stable and dynamic country, built upon freedom, openness and respect for human rights. And we very much hope that all Sri Lankans will be able to share equally in its future. Thank you very much indeed.